Hello there. We're back with the 112 speaker cabinet build. This is the speaker that we're going to be putting in this cabinet. This is a Carvin British series speaker. It was a 12-inch guitar speaker that Carvin offered in their amplifiers in, I think, the late 80s, early 90s. I know 90s, but I think it's as early as like 87 or something like that, but don't quote me on that. I've had this speaker since the early 90s for sure, and I'm not right dead on the date, but yeah, early 90s. So this speaker is 20 years or more old, and they're fantastic speakers in my opinion. I loved the sound of this speaker. I had it in a homemade cabinet back then. It is exhibiting some signs of aging now. I have 4, I think, surround cracks. And we'll talk about those in a minute. But I'm going to repair this speaker. Now the repair technique that I'm going to use is, I got off of YouTube from a guy called Uncle Doug. He's an amp repairman, a radio repairman. He makes, I've seen him make some like cabinets for old Fender amps that the cabinet was destroyed or whatever, and he builds tongue and groove cabinets and basically restored the amp and stuff like that to working condition and put it in that cabinet. You know, covered it in Talex or tweed or whatever was needed, that kind of deal. So in my opinion, if I'm gonna look at somebody on YouTube to repair a speaker, I'm gonna look at somebody like him. And there are several speaker repair videos on YouTube. But keep in mind, first of all, most of these guys don't know what they're doing, and second of all, this is a guitar speaker. It reproduces a limited range of frequencies specifically tailored to the guitar. This is not a hi-fi speaker that's like the low frequency driver that's going to go in a 2-way or 3-way cabinet that would normally cost $5 grand or whatever. Okay, and it's not going to be hooked up to a $4 or $5 grand power amp or preamp or receiver. Okay. It's not hi-fi. I'm fixing a guitar speaker. You will find that the opinions about what you're supposed to do and not do when you start talking about speakers, repairing speakers, fixing speakers, building speakers, choosing speakers, doesn't matter. If it's audiophile related, there's 1,000 guys out there that will tell you there's only one way, and it's their way. And most of them will say, oh, you should always recone a speaker because doing what I'm fixing to do, or any of the various other ways that people repair these speakers, will change the sound of the speaker. Well, I've got news for you. If you take a 10 or 20 or 30-year-old speaker and pull the surround and the cone out of it and recone it with a brand new speaker cone and surround and all of that, that's going to change the sound of the speaker. Anything you do, even a new speaker, if I pull the cone and the surround out of a relatively new speaker and replace it, that's a brand new cone, it's a brand new surround, it's never had any vibrations run through it, it's never had any movement going on. You don't have any clue whether that cone is comparable to the cone that was in it as far as thickness goes, as far as flexibility goes, even a lot of times as far as material construction goes. They might tell you it's this material or that material, but the speaker manufacturers, they get everything to their specs and build the speaker a certain way. And if you rip all that out and put new in, I don't care what it is, it's going to change the sound. And so if what I'm fixing to do, which is ignore everybody else's advice and do what I think is right, okay, is going to bother you, then turn away from this video. Okay, this is a guitar speaker. This is not the epitome of an example of fine audiophile quality sound, okay? It's a speaker meant to reproduce the sounds of a guitar, the frequency range of a guitar, in a particular way in which the manufacturer has decided to create this driver to emphasize and de-emphasize certain frequencies to get a frequency curve they're looking for. Okay, so let's look at what we're going to do. Okay, I've adjusted the exposure in my camera to try to help you to see what's going on here. The peripheral, the bench and whatnot, it might be blown out, which means it might be really bright over there where you can't see any detail. I'm focusing on this, so that's the deal there. Now this has radial cracks. It's got a really good one here, and here, let me try to, one here and one here, and these are the two that are primarily of concern. Let me put on some magnification so I can see. There's also one starting here, and I know, and one starting here, although I don't know if you can see that. If you look at the speaker cone, the surround part of it is doped. We're gonna do a poor man's doping job of that later on, but the first thing that I'm gonna do is use some Permatex gasket maker and sealer to repair these cracks. And Uncle Doug, who I'm taking this from, this is how he does it. So this is how I'm going to do it, because I'm going to follow his tips, so that, because I think they're probably the best way of doing it. This gasket sealer should be flexible enough to not stop the speaker cone incursion. In other words, the flex of the speaker cone too much. And let me make absolutely sure we won't have any more here. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lick my finger so I don't get this stuff all over me. And I'm going to I'm going to smooth that out to try to kind of bridge that gap. And this one is pretty deep, so I'm gonna, these two that are pretty deep, I'm gonna add a bit of extra just because I want to be thorough, and I want to bridge that gap. On these two particularly, I really don't want to be able to see that crack, or if I do, very likely. And what I'm doing, by wetting my finger. It's just basically doing the same thing you might see in caulking. I know all you contractors and stuff out there that do it all the time can probably do it easier and make it look much better. That boy here can't do that. So that's what I'm going to do with that. And I'm going to take this. I don't want any spikes sticking off. I don't want it to look ugly at all. I want to do my very best to make it as inconspicuous as possible. Alright, and so we're going to leave that overnight to dry in my shed. And then we will be back.